Welcome back to the Masters of Materium. My name is Virtual, and today we're going over the Town of the Marquess, which has been recreated in an amazing game called Valheim, which is a huge inspiration for the Mirandus team. Grill, let's get into it.
All right, let's do this. Town of the Marquess, starting off as usual with the plot map.
Yeah, so the Marquess is the first of our towns and a substantial step up from the previous deeds. The first thing people are probably noticing are the two large buildings, and in this particular one we do a armor shop and a weapon shop, which do complement each other, of course, if for a a sales perspective. Again, in this deed in general, we have a fairly wide selection of buildings, kind of a jack of all trade Town of the Marquess that can kind of fit pretty much any general building requirement, but has no specific niche associated with it. The Town of the Marquess also has very good access from all sides. Each side on the left there, you see two entrances, the right side two entrances, the back two entrances, and a large entrance through the center, and a midpoint that it all connects to in front of the deeds home. So very good access, nice, strong walls. You're talking the first of the towns. You're going to have, keep those powerful monsters out. You have a large amount of farming, not all that far off from even a farming hamlet. A few little ranching plots, tons and tons of 5x5 plots, enough to have multiples of some of them, and plenty of 10x10s to complement. Like I said, a significant step up. We also have a few marquees in the guild. Virtual is one of them, and you'll see that he's claimed the bed of this one, and this town we have named after another one of our marquees, Mr. Sorbonne.
Yeah, it's such a huge jump to go from one large to two larges. I mean, large plots are going to be incredibly coveted because a lot of the top tier buildings like jewelers and potion shops are larges. So yeah, definitely a huge jump in capabilities here.
Just the sheer size difference. When we get into the video, you'll see these things are just massive. When we go up from here too.
All right. This is the tiny town.
Yeah, nothing tiny about it. So next couple of screenshots, you see kind of the this is the area we started with. You see it's all water, but we filled this in. You'll see in the next shot. So this is kind of like roughly filled in where the town went. And then in the next shot, you see it's all nice and smoothed over. And then Aaelim built on top of that.
That's what they do in Panama. I live in Panama, and a couple of years ago, they just threw a bunch of dirt in the ocean and built islands. So,
they could build the Town of the Marquess.
Yeah, we could.
Couple of aerial shots I took the other day. Kind of give a little bit of an overview. I'm sure there'll be a flyby in the video as well. Here is it from the back. Here's the front entrance. You can see the house in the distance, and you see this is Mr. Sorbonne's Town of the Marquess, even though Virtual claimed his bed. Might be some problems about that. So I skipped some of the 10x10s. I think we've seen a lot of these in the other videos, and you'll see these in the actual video itself. This one, the focus on the large buildings in this particular town. This is a large armor shop. You come in here, you see all the different sets of armor. Nice big counter for doing business. There's a large weapon shop. And you guys see all various different weapons on the walls, including a very fancy case that Aaelim will just tell everyone about later. And then we have the house.
Yeah, so I really like this house.
No, to say it's awesome. It looks great.
Yeah, so the one and only thing I don't really like about this house is that the archway is just slightly off center from the center throughway through town. I would have liked to have, a nice straight walkway from the very center right through underneath, similar to the way that the Archduke is made. But other than that, this is definitely one of the prettiest homes for sure. Again, quite a complex build. There's a lot of designs and different levels and, roofing designs and such to construct. This one took me like a few days just to actually build the house on. And because of all these kind of odd designs, trying to keep it, structurally in tune was difficult as well, where once you got to the top, everything was red. So this here is an archway. In Valheim, you can't actually make arches. Like there's no actual full-size arch tile. So you kind of have to shift blocks in by like fraction of distances and then build along here. So here's kind of like a steel wire frame for the archway that's built off of all these shifted blocks. And this here is a overhead view of the second and the third floors of the house. And you can kind of see how this was all built together. It was kind of built in sections. And then based on that, I designed the interior on what could actually be made. So the inside here, to actually make it fit what you're seeing in the NFT pictures, would have to have multiple different staircases, one going down to one side, which kind of comes either a dead end or a exit on the back, or another side, which I actually do make the exit in the back in the bottom level. And here is starting to build up. You can see the archway is complete. You got all the framing around. You have on the far right side kind of like almost like a secondary building that attaches to the main part of the Town of the Marquee house, and you can kind of see the back entranceway and stairway going up to it there, and a little area for what ends up being the eating area. And that is the completed Town of the Marquee house. And the overview, you can actually see kind of a completed town at this point as well. And another view here, just looking up at the house, and you can kind of see, right underneath it, which is high enough so that you can clearly walk just underneath it as well.
Yeah, it's a real shame you can't get a nice curved arch in Valheim, but excited to see that in game.
You can see there's a lot of designs here, right? Between all the archways and different levels and all the different windows, and quite an interesting build. This is definitely one of my favorite builds. Next to the Town of the Prince, this is my second most favorite of the homes. And you can see the inside is quite spacious. You have a cartography table there. You can see in the far back, you have some area for eating. On the right side, you have a cooking area, and you can see the staircase up to the Town of the Marquee's bedroom. And you see kind of the central part, that's two staircases going down to two separate areas of a bottom floor. And here's in the Town of the Marquee's bedroom, Virtual's bed. And you can see he's got some trophies. Looks like he's killed goblins. He's got a large goblin head there. You got a nice viewway over the eating area, and nice view from the back towards the bay, and the front across the entire town as well.
That's a goblin head from the playtest that's coming up.
That's Mother. She's
That's
pretty.
right.
She looks pretty nasty, but she's going to be there for sure.
Where's his big pile of Materium? I think he's hoarded it all to himself. Another little shot of the bedroom here. You kind of see from on the right there, there's a little like viewing area for the bottom floor. And that's it for the slides. You ready to load up the video here? This one's fun and exciting, lots of combat.
Yeah, let's talk about just night combat. I know we've mentioned it before, but it sounds like nighttime's going to be far more dangerous, not just from a visibility perspective, but also from a creature perspective. Aaelim, how much more dangerous do you think the nighttime's going to be?
The fact that you can't really see it all at night is a huge increase in danger. The other thing, and I suspect you'll see similar things in Valheim as well, the creatures become a lot more aggressive. They tend to, initiate combat more frequently. You get higher tier enemies. You also get a lot more enemies come out at night.
You get swarmed sometimes.
So all of those things combined, nighttime in this game is probably, 4 or 5 times more dangerous than daytime. And I suspect Mirandus will be no different.
One thing you brought up, which was a great point related to the playtest, is it's going to be difficult to do archery at nighttime. If you can't see the targets, it's going to be shooting a bow in the dark, literally, which obviously makes things more difficult. And of course, you can buy a lantern. Probably better try to buy it on OpenSea. If you buy it on the Gallus store, it's $75,000. So,
an interesting point with regards to archery, and I think this could be quite useful, is in the previous Goblin playtest, you could see the Goblin's eyes, but obviously only if they were looking at you, right? So if they're coming from the side or from behind you, or they're in front of you but turned, you couldn't see them. So that's something. And also, exemplars like, the Beating Heart clan or potentially Orc of Certainty, they might be able to see kind of the heat signatures and stuff at night as well. So even though they can't visualize the surroundings that well, they might be able to at least, see the mobs and be able to call out and target and say, oh, a mob's coming in from the left. And then the person with the lantern, turns towards the left and kind of illuminates them, that sort of thing. So I can see some class synergy there as well.
Yeah, and if you love chatting about Mirandus, make sure you join our Discord. Go to mastersofthematerium.com, click the Discord link. We're always chatting and theory crafting in there, which is a lot of fun. So
nighttime farming strategies are going to be really interesting in game, all depending on what kind of powers and abilities the exemplars have.
Mike McCarthy did mention that some creatures and herbs and all that kind of stuff will only spawn at night. So yeah, you're definitely going to be seeing some night parties doing that sort of thing for sure.
Also, is there a higher likelihood of getting your town or deed attacked at night? That's an interesting question.
Probably, most possibly. And, if it was a nighttime attack, very similar to being out at night, that probably, a more significant attack potentially than during the day as well. So there's a lot of things to consider with nighttime.
Yeah, you might need a militia to defend your towns at night. As you can see here in the video, we're coming up on a little village that Aaelim is happily to burn down to the ground.
And you'll see kind of similar things in Mirandus, where come across like a goblin stronghold, etc. And we get randomly attacked by some seekers. You see Decentra Beebs dies there. A tick eats them. And
it's time to start the playtest over.
In this game, when you die, you lose all your gear until you come back and get it. And typically, if you die in a location, it's because, it was too hard to survive. And so getting your gear back is not always easy.
We could tell you that firsthand. How many hours did it take us to recover our bodies the first time we went out to the plains? It's like 3 or 4 hours?
Yeah, something like that. The death skeetles were kind of surprising until we figured out, how to deal with them and such.
They very much lived up to their name, that's for sure.
Let's talk about cemeteries while we watch the town burn down. To me, one of the most exciting things about Mirandus is that death has consequences, and McCarthy just keeps talking about that pretty much in every interview, and he's excited about it. So people are going to lose XP, which could be brutal, right? I don't know how brutal it's going to be, but he mentioned that as your character progresses, the XP drop will become more significant unless you pay a cemetery owner. And I think as a guild, cemetery locations are going to be really critical, because it sounds like you're not going to have to pick a cemetery and essentially kind of sign a smart contract where you'll respawn there and then you'll pay your Materium fee and come back to life. So, Grill, you're a proud owner of a grand cemetery. What's your thoughts overall on cemeteries and just death?
Yeah, they keep talking about how hard and everything's going to be and how easy it is to die. That sounds like good news to me. I was a little down on cemeteries, but if they're going to make things that hard where people are going to be constantly dying, then I think they could be quite viable.
Aaelim, surprisingly to me at least, you're not that bullish on cemeteries, so maybe talk about that.
The thing about, if anything is significant, then that costs money, people are going to avoid doing so. So, there's only so many times you die in an area before you start to notice that, maybe I shouldn't, overextend, or you start going in groups to decrease that, or you start gearing up to the point where you overgear the area and you die less. So given enough time, I think the amount of deaths or the amount of deaths per Materium acquired will decrease, and cemeteries will become less and less important. The other thing is cemeteries for pure crafting classes are probably not that useful, because unless you're getting raided in town and dying from that, I don't really see most crafting classes really ever dying.
One other thing is that they could make it so you have to bind to cemeteries maybe daily, so they can generate some kind of consistent income regardless of people dying. I'm guessing most people would want to be binded no matter what, just in case.
That's a good point. You could potentially have like a bind cost, and then potentially even a maintenance cost as well. So one thing about here that we're seeing is we went from a forest biome, and now we're entering the swamp biome. And this is the first of the swamps you see. And when you do that, the monsters change. So we went from seeing, some gray dwarfs to now you're seeing like skeletons. You're going to see various poisonous creatures, which, the clear bloods are going to be very valuable for. Here we see an actual dungeon. And in this particular game, the swamp dungeon is your source for iron. There's like iron deposit within that. And again, in Mirandus, you'll likely see such things. You'll see, deposits probably up in mountains and stuff, but you'll also likely see deposits in dungeons. And this is one such example.
And another thing they did is that you have to use iron pretty much at all levels of the game. So you still have to farm it like even much later on, especially for any kind of construction, but even using some higher tier gear. So it keeps you coming back to these different zones, regardless of how high you are or how advanced you are in the game.
It's definitely confirmed that we're going to get a wide variety of biomes just based off the concept artwork that's been shared so far. Maybe talk about how the biomes impact you in Valheim, because so many of the game mechanics in Valheim are being repurposed or swiped for Mirandus, because I know you guys have talked about how wet impacts you and things like that.
In this particular game, when you're in the swamp biome specifically, you're pretty much constantly wet. So first off, there's a lot of water when you're walking through. And the other thing is it's typically raining in the swamp as well, and that decreases your stamina. Also, there's a lot of poison within the swamp. So, you're frequently getting poisoned. You're probably going to want to bring like poison resistance as well. And you can kind of see various things in other biomes. Like let's say in Mirandus, you go into a desert. Maybe the heat from the sun drains your health potentially, or, drains your stamina faster, that sort of thing. Maybe, your sprint speed is slowed because you can't, handle the heat or whatever. I very much expect to have biome effects from that regard. And then even more important, related to our particular guild, biome effects on things such as farming. Like typically in the top of a mountain, you're going to be farming different things, and you're going to be farming in a desert, which is going to be different in a meadows or plains type of environment as well. So I suspect biomes play a very significant role within Mirandus.
Yeah, I could see specific gear or enchants trying countering that. Like even in Valheim, if you're up in the mountains, if you have you don't have the right gear on, there's a cold debuff dot, and you just slowly start to die. But once you get upgraded armor, that goes away.
And then of course, poison biomes are going to be probably a big part of Mirandus. It's a big part of this game as well, which maybe that's where the clear bloods will become a huge advantage to have.
The fact that the CEO of Gala Games actually has over 100 clear bloods himself. So, that kind of leads that there's probably going to be quite a bit of poison in this game. And Mike McCarthy also recently mentioned that despite the NFT description claiming that, clear bloods will be, almost immune to poison, is that they'll probably be potentially completely immune to poison. So that's something important to note. Another thing is when you're going in various biomes and such, there's different kinds of creatures. And something that we're going to see here is that we have a random semi-rare boss, mini-boss type creature spawn, this being the Abomination. These give you special materials that help you, upgrade, armor and weapons and stuff. So this is the kind of creature that's going to be really in high demand. Not the easiest to farm because they are somewhat random spawns, and they're a lot tougher than, most creatures. Although we take it down fairly quickly simply because we're a bit over leveled for this particular zone.
Because that's what M.O.M does.
We just wrecked them.
Yeah, the first time we ran into an A-bomb, it was pretty much the other way around. We got wrecked. Making our way through the swamp here.
Quickly running through the swamp here. You get a kind of a view of all the areas. Lots of different, trees and stuff. Different crafting materials. You see kind of those glowing plants earlier as well. And here you see a troll, which is up to the left. And something important to note, and I switch weapons here. When we were doing the raid on that Druegar town earlier, I was using the fire staff, which does AoE damage. This is a single target, and you find here that I use the ice staff because it does more single target damage. And at the same time, you're like, well, when you fought the Abomination, why didn't you use the Ice Staff? Well, the Abomination tends to be somewhat weak to fire damage. So in that case, I would have used the AoE weapon because of the fire dot.
So, question around that: do you think that, again, different creatures in Mirandus are going to have different weaknesses, and do you think that we're going to see hit damage actually pop up as we just saw with the numbers? Because if we don't see that, then it's going to be much more difficult to gauge, what's the most effective type of attacks. What's your opinion on that?
I don't know if we'll see the actual hit numbers. Certainly, elemental damage, resistance, physical damages, and resistance and stuff. I can pretty much certain we'll see. I do like how they have this, voltaic sword, kind of this elusive weapon in the most recent hype trailer for the upcoming playtest, which one would assume is probably using, elemental lightning damage or potentially shock or some other potential effect. And who knows, maybe goblins potentially are susceptible to that kind of damage or what have you. So it will be interesting to see for sure.
If I had to guess, you're not going to see damage numbers. I think
Yeah.
they want to keep this game very clean looking, and they kind of make clutter in general.
Well, plus it makes it more challenging, right? You're going to have to try to guesstimate damage, and it's going to be more realistic that way.
Also harder to calculate. Like when you can calculate accurate DPS numbers and stuff, you can determine what's optimal for every mob. But when you kind of have to see how long it takes to kill a mob on average, or I'm not even sure if we'll see health bars on enemies. If
I don't
can't
think
see
we will.
then that's going to be really tough. Like let's say we're fighting Mother, okay, which we'll be doing in the not too distant future here. Are we close to having her down, or have we only like scratched the surface? Are we even doing damage to her? Who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually going to present a whole other level of stress, which excites me. Are we 5 minutes away from killing her or 5 hours? You know what I mean? Like the
Could be
unknown
either.
is going to really jack up the whole stress response.
Or maybe it's all just a troll, and you just hit her once with a level 1 club and she dies, right? So here we have the Town of the Marquess billboard, and it has all the details of the town with the number of plots of each respective type: decorations, farming, ranching, and the various plot building sizes. And the Town of the Marquess. So arrow was to the left to go to the docks, and we're coming in here with a bunch of various buildings, starting off with the ease of access of your two most common kind of 5x5s, the hitching posts and simple storehouse. Typically, you're probably going to want these at easy to access places around your town. So, the entrance and or exits to towns, villages, and such seems like a logical location. Tavern, again, you're going to expect a tavern to be in any of these size towns, and these taverns are going to be better and better stocked, and the larger the tier and the the higher the tier of the deed. So they have a nice, well, it looks like we're having some omelets here.
Yeah, this one's not so lonely. You actually got company this time.
Yeah, it was a vandalizer. He's having a good feed, it looks like.
Van's always there for us.
I sit down with Van. Don't want to have them all alone, Van. Oh, we got lots of people joining in here. Oh yeah,
I think that's virtual coming in for a drink.
Yep.
During the day, come on, gotta save that stuff for night.
I'm going for the protein shake. Okay, leave me alone.
So a nice small little markety area here. You have a few kind of staples of 5x5s. The potion shop. You have a jewelry stand, and you have two simple forges nearby to kind of complement each other. And you may see things like that as well in Mirandus, where let's say you have two 5x5s, and let's say a simple forge can only handle one type of crafting. Well, you might want to put that type of crafting one simple forge and potentially another type of crafting station in, say, the other simple forge to complement that, which is almost the equivalent of, let's say, potentially running like a 10x10, or at least more than just a basic 5x5 simple forge.
I do like this little square here. I didn't like it on the map the first time I saw it, but actually in the game, as we discussed with other things, it looks pretty good.
So we're coming into the armor shop here, and this is another large building. And as you can expect from a large building, you'll have a significant supply. So this particular armor shop has literally every armor set in Valheim. You can see all of them there, and the top row, out of hand's reach for those, people looking for the 5-finger discount. You have all the highest tier armors as well, including the armor that I'm wearing in the dead center at the top. So
I had to put that stuff up there. People kept punching my counters.
I don't believe anyone would ever punch your counter, girl. Come on.
Oh, okay. I must, maybe it was a dream.
So a nice little shop. Well, not so little, but it's going to adequately supply what you'd expect from a decent size armor shop within a major town.
It's really a significant step up from the 10x10s.
And to complement a large armor shop, of course, we have is the large weapon shop. And the first thing we notice when we enter this large weapon shop is the display case there. And I'm going to give you a quote from Michael McCarthy here on the very first Mirandus video that I saw. And kind of honestly, one of the things that got me most interested in Mirandus in terms of hype initially on, and it's, don't try to put a magic sword on a dirty wooden table. You'll need upgraded displays to hold more powerful items. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. So you're seeing an upgraded display case, very similar to the one that he's showing in that video with glass lining it. And this is something you're going to be seeing in Mirandus for magical items, where you're going to have these, fancy display cases in order to sell these particular items. And to get these upgrades, you're going to have to purchase the materials. So it's going to cost you Gala or Materium or whatever to get to that point of being able to, sell these coveted items. And I'd suspect magical items are going to be very, very rare, and as a result of that, very powerful and, very expensive.
I do miss those first couple of Mirandus videos, the ones when you first introduced us to the whole space, was kind of what got me hyped as well. They were informational. I love McCarthy's narrating.
He's got an amazing voice, and I was surprised that there was a video where he talked about how he hated his voice. To me, it's like I could just hear him speak all day.
So otherwise, in this particular weapon shop, this is a large weapon shop, so you'd expect a fairly large assortment of weapons. You see the magical items, you can see the magical sword in the display case, some other swords, hammers, various daggers, small tools, and the like as well. So a very wide selection of, high tier weapons in this particular location, which you'd expect to be in a large weapon shop in a major town.
Do you have any voltaic swords for sale?
That might be the voltaic sword right there. What do you think in the display case?
Yeah.
I'd love if that were the case. We'll have to find out what this voltaic sword is. It's got me interested, to say the least. And we see, some of the basic places here. We see a little, 10x10 cemetery, which is obviously pretty accessible in this town. People are, paying their respects as one would expect. And with most of these deeds, we have a temple that's located next to it with our most favorite
El Verdon.
El Verdon. There you go. So we got to pay our respects there. He's going to give us a good buff and, get us pumped for our next little adventure, which from the Town of the Marquess was upwards to the village of the Baron, which we've all seen in a previous video up through the mountain pass.
Looks like you gave a little rub there before you went out.
And we have a little camp with lots of presents. Looks like people are resting up here, restoring their health. Set a spawn point, which is good. This is not the way it's going to be in Mirandus, though. Spawn points will be occurring at cemeteries, but in Valheim, the spawn points are done in beds. In Mirandus, beds are simply for restoring your health instead.
Apparently, like Van's right there.
Those straw beds look rough.
Yeah.
think we should have given him a better shield. He's using a wooden shield here. Need to give him some
Go to that large
tower
armor
shield.
shop.
Yeah, no kidding. Very similar to other deeds, you have some basics of 10 by 10s. Here you have a stonecraft shop, a decent supply of stones and black marble and the like, all the stuff you would upgrade.
Some tools on the wall. A couple of benches to do work on. Punching the rocks.
Yeah, punch those rocks. Wood shop as previous. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on these. And we have the wood shop, all the typical supplies that you would expect at the basic wood shop. Here we have an actual 10 by 10 archery, which is the first we've seen of a 10 by 10 archery. And that has a decent, access to getting various bows, and you see some trophies, looks like from, various hunting adventures and a crafting station to make some bows as well.
And Mom has multiple large archeries, so make sure you join mastersofmaterium.com to get the finest arrows, bows, and crossbows in the game.
And we actually have a large archery in the Town of the Prince, which will be coming up in the coming weeks here. And you get to see what a large archery could potentially look like in action. And a little, weapon stand and armor stand. They're not going to compete against the large armor shop and weapon shop, but, nice little satellite place for someone looking for lower tier items that are just, coming in their adventure. Potentially, if they have repairs in the game, which I certainly hope they do, this would be a quick, easy way to, come in after your journeys, repair your gear, and get back out at it as, quickly as possible. And of course, you have your staples of any 10 by 10 buildings within a town. You have your potion shop. You have across the way here, you have a outfitter, which is well supplied, decent quality armors in here. This outfitter is obviously doing very good, very busy. Both spinning wheels working at maximum, cranking out product.
Yeah,
I don't see a grill though.
Oh yeah, I think I took the day off. I was going to say the potion shop counter reminds me of like old school Zelda when you would find the shopkeeper. You have like
Exactly.
the 3 options.
That was actually my inspiration for that. It's good that you brought that up, Grill. Yeah, you go to the rupees, I should say, and you just buy it. This one here is a little fancier jeweler. Again, we're in a higher tier deed, so now you also have like a little kind of like a mini smelter and crafting station. And we have a meat stand with the fire lit on this one. Looks like we're cooking some meats. It's always good.
Come get your beef jerkies.
And a bread stand. And looks like the oven is ready to set. No, looks like, look, the oven's getting filled here. We have some good, nice, warm meals coming out here in the not too distant future.
Last week, I was doing some brain training, and the chef we hired made some elven bread. It was so good. It was like this sourdough bread with some heirloom, and it was off the charts. So we'll be making some of that. Mom, make sure you come join us.
One bite would fill you up for the whole day.
Yeah, it was like that. I ate like one piece. I'm like, I don't think I want dinner anymore.
Well, that and some trenchers. You got to make trenchers.
Endless trenchers.
Actually, that's one of the things in this playtest that they were mentioning, that you can make some bread or whatever, or the taverns can serve trenchers specifically. So it'd be good to get back into some trencher action here.
World first trencher.
Oh yeah, that should be like 1 million Materium alone. So lots of farming, specifically on the Citadel of the Wind website. They have the farming plots wrong on this particular deed, the total numbers. So that's been corrected and adjusted in this particular build. We have a mill, 10 by 10, very similar to what we saw in the Village of the Farmer, kind of depicting a difference between that and the basic grain stand. And we have the main area, very similar to the Village of the Earl, with the 2 decorative plots in front of the Deed's home, which also has an arch, this one being a much larger arch. But I almost compare the Town of the Marquess, kind of reminds me of like an upgraded Village of the Earl. They're very similar in many ways, with the way the entrance comes in from the center, right in front of the house. You can branch off to the left or the right, and the archway through it. It is very, very similar.
Yeah, it kind of has like that stone bottom with the archway and then like a wooden house on top of it.
Mr. Sorbone's house. If you're watching Mr. Sorbone, this one's for you. Big thumbs up here. So lots of designs within this house. Again, like I said, a very complex build. You can see it's fancy, literally nice fancy carpets. You know, that's not specific to Mirandus. This is just kind of creative flair that you're seeing here. But everything else is kind of what you'd expect with this design. Obviously, you need to get up to the upstairs. You know, you need a place to eat. You need a place to cook. Place to cook's going to be where you're going to see fireplaces. So all of those locations are pretty much set in place. So I would expect the actual deed to be very similar to this. And to be able to actually access these windows that you're seeing, it needs to have a walkway down, and there's really nowhere else to put it other than where I put it there.
That carpet looks so nice. I feel an impulse to just start doing ninja rolls on it.
Got some more omelets here. Yeah, very similar. They must have grabbed this from the tavern. They were serving some omelets.
Must be like a regional delicacy.
That's certainly possible. That's something you'll probably see in Mirandus as well, where certain areas are more specialized than others, whether they have Proudhursts that have mastery in a specific skill, or that particular biome produces crops that are more susceptible or more capable, I should say, in higher yields to produce that kind of product. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you do see regional specialties in Mirandus as well. That's a good point you made, Gro.
You think we're
omelet
gonna get
mastery?
You think we're going to get magic chickens that pump up magic eggs that give us buffs?
As long as they're golden eggs, and those golden eggs are, filled with Materium, I'm all for it. So that particular sword that you saw there, that is the Mistwalker, and it's a special sword that actually breaks away, talking about biomes, it breaks away the mist within the Mistlands. So it literally like cuts through the fog. So it does make me wonder if you'll see kind of special items like that as well in Mirandus, that in certain biomes, let's say there's a poison or fog or whatever, that you have specific items that can directly combat that.
Yeah, I'd love to see as much specialization as possible.
So we're coming up to the bedroom. And as we mentioned before, Virtual has claimed Mr. Sorbone's bed. I don't know what's going on between Virtual and Mr. Sorbone, but, that's up to them to decide what they're doing. But what you're seeing here is the goblin, and you're also seeing two other goblins as well. So you're seeing a goblin berserker, you're seeing just a standard goblin, and then you're seeing a goblin shaman. And in this next playtest, we know there's at least two types of goblins. You have the goblin mother, which is the boss, which hopefully Mom will get the kill on. And at the time that you're watching this video, you may actually know the outcome of that. Also, we know that there's just standard goblins as well. And those particular goblins will be, providing necessary requirements to gear up to fight the goblin mother.
Yes, Sorbonne and I may or may not be Eskimo brothers.
It's a pretty big bed, right?
So we're coming back down here all the way out through the big fancy doors, and we'll take a nice little aerial view to have a good look at the town. So here you can kind of see the perspective of everything. And you see, this is a big area. Like, it took us a while to walk around this, and this is the smallest of the towns. They only get larger from this point. And as you can see, the Town of the Marquess house is pretty fancy, right? So
Looks
I
like
really like that.
An epic Swiss chalet. There we have it. mastersofmaterium.com. Make sure you join us, hit the link, join our Discord, and then register to become an official member of M.O.M. Thanks again, Aaelim. Incredible work. And we'll be back soon with the next big town. Thank you.